The Galactic Council had watched humanity for 300 years before making first contact. They had seen the wars, the hatred, the bombs that turned cities to ash. They had seen children crying in rubble and soldiers dying in mud. The Council had voted 17 times on whether to approach the violent species, and 17 times they had said no. But they had also seen something else. They had seen enemies become friends. They had seen nations that once tried to destroy each other sitting at the same table, sharing bread and wine. They had seen humans pull strangers from burning buildings and give their last food to those who had nothing. This confused the Council greatly. Ambassador Threll of the Vethani was the first to meet humanity face to face. She was tall and thin, with silver skin and eyes like polished stones. She had studied humans for 50 years and thought she understood them. She was wrong. The meeting took place on a space station built halfway between Earth and the nearest Vethani colony. Threll brought 12 guards and 3 advisors. The human delegation brought only 5 people, and 2 of them were there to carry food and drinks. The lead human was a woman named Sarah Chen. She was short and round, with gray hair and wrinkles around her eyes. She smiled often and laughed easily. Threll thought she seemed too soft to be dangerous. "We brought gifts," Sarah said, placing a wooden box on the table. "Chocolate, coffee, and tea. We were not sure what you could eat, so we also brought the chemical compositions for your scientists to check." Threll was confused. "You bring us poisons and call them gifts." Sarah laughed. "Chocolate is only poison if you eat too much of it. For humans, it brings joy. We hope to share that joy with you." This was the first lesson the galaxy learned about humans. They gave gifts to strangers. They shared their joy freely. Even their poisons were meant kindly. The talks went well. Humanity wanted trade and knowledge. They wanted to see the stars and meet new peoples. They did not ask for territory or power. The Council was suspicious of this. Every other species they had met wanted something more. "What is your price?" Threll asked finally. "What do you truly want from us?" Sarah looked at her for a long moment. "We want to not be alone anymore. For all of our history, we looked at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there. Now we know. We just want to be part of something bigger than ourselves." The Council granted humanity provisional membership in the Galactic Union. There were rules and restrictions, of course. Humans could trade but not settle beyond their home system. They could visit but not stay. They could learn but not teach. The Council wanted to study this strange species more before giving them full rights. Humanity accepted these terms without complaint. They were patient. They had waited millions of years to reach the stars. They could wait a little longer. For 20 years, things were peaceful. Human traders became known across the galaxy for their fairness and creativity. Human artists made works that other species could not understand but found beautiful anyway. Human scientists asked questions that no one had thought to ask before. Slowly, the galaxy began to trust the violent apes from the 3rd planet of an unremarkable star. The humans built friendships wherever they went. They learned the languages of other species, not through translation machines alone, but through careful study and practice. They remembered names and faces. They asked about families and histories. This seemed natural to humans, but it amazed other species. Most beings in the galaxy kept to their own kind. Humans wanted to know everyone. A young human trader named Marcus spent 3 years living among the Vethani, learning their ways. He ate their food, which tasted terrible to him. He learned their songs, which hurt his ears. He attended their ceremonies and celebrated their holidays. When he left, the Vethani elders gave him a new name. They called him Bridge Builder in their language. Stories like this spread across the galaxy. Humans were strange, but they were good. They could be trusted. They cared about others in ways that seemed almost foolish. Then the Kreth came. The Kreth were not members of the Galactic Union. They lived beyond the mapped regions of space, in a place called the Dark Expanse. No one knew much about them except that they took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not take. They had been raiding the edges of civilized space for centuries, appearing without warning and vanishing just as quickly. Their first major attack in 20 years was on a Vethani farming colony called New Shelter. 12,000 Vethani lived there, growing food and raising families in peace. It was a quiet place, far from the main shipping lanes. The people there had almost forgotten that danger existed. The Kreth ships came at night local time, when most people were sleeping. Their vessels were black as space itself, invisible until they opened fire. The first explosions woke the colony, but by then it was already too late. The attack lasted 4 hours. When it was over, there was nothing left. No buildings, no fields, no people. The Kreth had taken everything of value and burned the rest. Satellite images showed the colony as a black scar on the green land. 12,000 lives, erased in a single night. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. They debated for 3 days about what to do. The Vethani wanted war. Their ambassador spoke with tears in her eyes, demanding justice for the dead. The other species were not so sure. The Kreth were powerful and far away. Fighting them would be costly and dangerous. Many felt it was better to strengthen defenses and hope the Kreth would leave them alone. While the council talked, a human cargo ship happened to pass near New Shelter. Its captain was a man named James Rodriguez. He was 43 years old, born on Earth, the son of farmers who had never left their continent. He had become a trader to see the stars his parents had told him stories about. James had been delivering medical supplies to a nearby system when he heard the distress call. It was already old by the time he received it, delayed by the distances of space. He changed course immediately, pushing his engines harder than they were meant to go. By the time he arrived, the killing was over. The Kreth ships were gone. Only silence remained. James landed his ship in the ash and walked through what remained of the colony. He found no survivors. He found only bodies, thousands of them, scattered across the burned ground. Some were still holding hands. Some had died protecting others. Some were children, so small that he had to look twice to be sure what he was seeing. James was not a soldier. He was a simple trader who had never fired a weapon in anger. He had spent his life believing that the universe was basically good, that people could solve their problems through talking and trading and understanding. He had been naive. Something changed in him that day. He knelt in the ash beside a small body and made a promise. He did not say it out loud. The words would not come, but everyone who knew him later said they could see it in his eyes when he returned to human space. He was not the same man who had left. Word of New Shelter spread quickly through human networks. James shared the footage he had recorded, warning that it was difficult to watch. People watched it anyway. They saw the bodies, the destruction, the senseless waste of innocent life. They saw what the Kreth had done to beings who had never harmed anyone. Something old woke up in humanity that day, something that had been sleeping since the last of their great wars. It was not just anger, though there was plenty of that. It was something deeper, a sense that some things could not be allowed to stand, that some wrongs demanded response. The council was still debating when humanity made its move. 300 human ships appeared at the edge of Vethani space. They were not military vessels. Humanity had no real military. They were cargo ships, passenger liners, mining platforms, anything that could fly and hold weapons. Humans had armed them with whatever they could find or build. Some carried missiles. Some carried lasers. Some carried nothing but ramming prows and the willingness to use them. Sarah Chen, now old and frail, spoke to the council via hologram. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "We did not ask your permission," she said. "We know you will be angry, but we cannot stand by while innocents die. We are going to find the Kreth. We are going to make them pay for what they did." The Vethani ambassador spoke up. "This is our fight, not yours. Why do you care? New Shelter was not your colony. Those were not your people." Sarah smiled sadly. "They were people, that is enough for us." The human fleet left the next day. James Rodriguez was there, commanding one of the smaller ships. He had sold everything he owned to buy weapons and supplies. He had recruited his crew from volunteers who felt the same way he did. None of them expected to return. No one in the galaxy expected them to return either. The Kreth were too powerful. The dark expanse was too dangerous. The humans were flying to their deaths. But they flew anyway. The hunt for the Kreth took humanity deep into the dark expanse. This was space that no mapped routes crossed, where stars were few and far between. The darkness between worlds stretched for light years, empty and cold. Ships could travel for weeks without seeing anything but blackness. The human fleet moved slowly, following faint signals and scattered clues. They found evidence of Kreth raids on long-dead worlds. They found survivors hiding in asteroid belts, too afraid to come out. They gathered information piece by piece, building a picture of their enemy. The Kreth were old. They had been raiding for thousands of years, long before the Galactic Union existed. They saw themselves as the rightful rulers of the stars. Other species were prey, nothing more. They took what they needed and discarded the rest. Many in the human fleet wanted to turn back. The journey was harder than anyone had expected. Supplies ran low. Ships broke down. People got sick and died. Morale faded as the months dragged on. Captain Rodriguez would not let them give up. He called meetings every week, reminding them why they had come. "We made a promise," he said at every meeting. "We do not break our promises. The dead of New Shelter are watching us. We will not let them down." Some people thought he was crazy. Some thought he was inspiring. Everyone followed him anyway. They found the Kreth homeworld after 8 months of searching. It was a cold planet orbiting a dying red star. Great cities covered its surface, built from metal and stone in shapes that hurt human eyes to look at. The Kreth had built their civilization on the bones of 100 conquered species. Their world was a monument to cruelty. The Kreth themselves were not beautiful. They were large and armored, with too many limbs and mouths full of sharp teeth. They had evolved as predators on a harsh world, and they had never stopped being predators. Their ships were fast and deadly, designed for one purpose: hunting. The human fleet was outnumbered 10 to 1. Any sensible commander would have retreated. Rodriguez was not sensible. He was angry. He was determined. He was human. "All ships prepare for battle," he said calmly. "Today we show the Kreth what happens when they hurt the innocent. Today we show the galaxy that we are not prey." The battle lasted 3 days. Human ships were destroyed by the dozens. For every Kreth vessel they killed, they lost 3 of their own. The humans fought with everything they had. They fought with weapons and with courage and with the knowledge that they were right. The Kreth were confused. They had never faced prey that fought back like this. Other species ran or surrendered. These strange, soft creatures kept coming, even as their ships burned around them. It was not logical. It was not sensible. It was terrifying. On the second day, Rodriguez's ship was hit. The explosion threw him across the bridge, shattering his leg and burning his face. His crew begged him to pull back, to save what remained of the fleet. He refused. "Send a message to the Kreth commander," he said through gritted teeth. "Tell them we want to talk." The Kreth commander was named Vex. It was old and scarred, a veteran of 100 raids. It had killed more beings than it could count. It had never spoken to prey before. It was curious what these strange, soft creatures wanted to say. "You are losing," Vex said when the communication link opened. "Your ships are burning. Your people are dying. Why do you not flee like the others?" Rodriguez laughed, though it hurt to do so. "Because we are not like the others. We do not forget. We do not forgive. Not until justice is done." "What is justice to you?" Vex asked. The concept was strange to it. The Kreth had no word for justice. They had words for strength and weakness, victory and defeat, but not justice. "New Shelter," Rodriguez said. 12,000 innocent people. You killed them all. We want to know why." Vex was silent for a moment. They had things we wanted, we took them. This is how we survive. The strong take from the weak. This is the law of the universe. No, Rodriguez said firmly. It is not. Where we come from, we have a different law. When someone hurts the innocent, we hunt them down. We make them pay. No matter how long it takes. No matter what it costs. And if you die trying, Vex asked. Then others will come after us, then more after them. Humans do not stop. We never stop. Not until justice is done. You can kill every human in this fleet and more will come. You can kill every human in the galaxy and our memory will remain. Someone will always remember what you did. Someone will always seek justice. Vex considered this. It was a strange way to think. The Kreth did not seek justice. They sought survival. They had never encountered a species that would die for an idea. You are interesting prey, Vex said finally. I will enjoy killing you. The battle resumed. More ships died on both sides. The space around the Kreth homeworld filled with debris and frozen bodies. Humans and Kreth died together, locked in a battle that neither side could truly win. Then something unexpected happened. A Kreth ship, small and fast, broke away from its formation. It flew toward the human fleet with its weapons powered down. Its running lights blinked in a pattern that meant surrender. No Kreth had ever surrendered before. Its commander was young, barely old enough to fight. Its name was Neth, and it had been at New Shelter. It had walked through the colony with a weapon in its limbs, doing what it had been trained to do. It had returned home covered in ash and blood, and something inside it had broken. I want to surrender, Neth said over the open channel. I want to tell you what happened. I want to help you stop this. Rodriguez stared at the screen. His face was burned and his leg was broken, and he had watched friends die for 2 days. Part of him wanted to destroy the Kreth ship without another word. But another part of him remembered something his mother had told him when he was young. She had lived through one of Earth's last great wars. She had lost her parents and her home and everything she owned. But she had rebuilt. She had found new family. She had told her son that the hardest thing in the world was not seeking revenge. It was knowing when to stop. Why would you betray your own people? Rodriguez asked. Neth was quiet for a long time. Because I saw what we did at New Shelter. I saw the children. I cannot forget their faces. They haunt me in my sleep. I do not want to be this anymore. I want to be something else. I do not know if that is possible, but I want to try. This was the first time humanity had to choose between vengeance and forgiveness. It would not be the last. The human fleet stopped firing. The Kreth fleet stopped too, confused by what was happening. In the silence between the guns, Rodriguez made a decision that would change everything. Let the Kreth ship dock with us, he ordered. His crew thought he was crazy. The Kreth could not be trusted. This was obviously a trap. Everyone knew that the Kreth were monsters. Everyone knew that monsters could not change. But Rodriguez had seen something in Neth's eyes, or what passed for eyes in a Kreth. He had seen regret. He knew that look well. He had worn it himself many times. Neth came aboard the human flagship alone and unarmed. The crew surrounded it with weapons drawn. Neth did not resist or run. It simply stood there, waiting. Its armored body was motionless, but its limbs trembled slightly. It was afraid. Tell me about New Shelter, Rodriguez said. Neth told them everything. The Kreth had attacked the colony for resources and slaves. They had been planning the raid for months, watching the colony, learning its routines. They had found the Vethani easy to capture. The children were taken first because they were small and could fit in the ship's holds. The adults who fought were killed. The adults who did not fight were killed anyway. At the end, the Kreth burned everything to hide what they had done. They left nothing but ash and bodies. I was on the ground team, Neth said. I pulled a child from its mother's arms. The mother screamed. I did not care. I was following orders. I was doing what the strong do to the weak. What changed? Rodriguez asked. Neth's many limbs trembled harder. The child looked at me. It was small and scared. It did not understand what was happening. It reached out to me like it wanted me to hold it to protect it. And I realized that it saw me as a person, not a monster. It trusted me, even as I was taking it to its death. The room was silent. Even the crew members who wanted to kill Neth were listening now. I have not slept without seeing that face since, Neth continued. I thought I was strong. I thought I was a warrior, but I was just a coward following orders. I do not want to die a coward. I want to make things right, even if it costs me my life. Rodriguez looked at Neth for a long time. He thought about the promise he had made in the ashes of New Shelter. He thought about the bodies of the children. He thought about all the crew members who had died to get here. He thought about what it meant to be human. His mother had told him something else too. She had told him that hate was easy. Hate was comfortable. Hate made you feel strong and righteous. But hate destroyed everything it touched. The only way to break the cycle was to be stronger than the hate. Rodriguez did something that surprised everyone, including himself. We do not kill those who surrender in good faith, he said. This is one of our oldest laws. If you truly want to help us, we will let you. But you must face justice for what you did. You must answer to the Vethani for your crimes. Neth lowered its head. I accept. Whatever they decide, I deserve. The battle did not end that day. It continued for another week with both sides bleeding and dying. But something had changed. The rumor of Neth's surrender spread through both fleets. Other Kreth ships began to break away from their formation. They came to the humans, one by one, asking to surrender. They all told similar stories. Some were young like Neth, haunted by what they had done. Some were old, tired of endless killing. Some simply wanted to survive, but all of them had begun to doubt. They had begun to wonder if there was another way to live. The Kreth commander, Vex, watched this happening with growing fury. It ordered the deserters destroyed, but its remaining ships refused. The fleet was falling apart. Everything Vex had believed was crumbling. What have you done to my people? Vex demanded in one final communication. Rodriguez looked at the old Kreth through the screen. We showed them that they have a choice. That is all. Some are choosing differently than you did. Choice is weakness, Vex snarled. No, Rodriguez said. Choice is strength. It takes courage to change. It takes nothing to stay the same. Vex cut the communication and fled with its loyal ships deep into the dark expanse. The battle was over. The humans had won, though not in any way they had expected. By the time the shooting stopped, half the Kreth fleet had surrendered. The other half had retreated, refusing to give up their way of life. The Kreth homeworld was battered but still standing. Its cities still stood. Its people still lived. Rodriguez sent a message to the Galactic Council. We have won, he said, but not in the way we expected. We need your help to figure out what comes next. The Council was amazed. They had expected the humans to destroy the Kreth completely or to be destroyed themselves. They had not expected this strange middle path. They had not expected forgiveness. Ambassador Threll traveled to the Kreth homeworld herself. She wanted to understand what had happened. She spoke to Rodriguez, who was still healing from his wounds. She spoke to Neth, who was waiting to face trial. She spoke to many others on both sides. I do not understand, she said finally to Rodriguez. The Kreth killed 12,000 of our people. They showed no mercy. Why did you show them any? Rodriguez thought about this question for a long time. He was lying in a medical bed, his leg in a healing cast, his face covered in scars. He had lost so much in this war. He had every reason to want the Kreth destroyed. Because we have been the Kreth before, he said at last. In our history, we have done terrible things. We have killed the innocent. We have burned cities. We have taken what did not belong to us. We have been monsters many times. He paused, remembering his mother's stories. But we also learned that this path leads nowhere good. We learned that hate only creates more hate, and violence only creates more violence. The only way to break the cycle is to choose something different. So you forgave them? Threll asked. No, Rodriguez said. Forgiveness is not the same as letting people escape justice. The Kreth who surrendered will face trial. They will answer for what they did. If they are found guilty, they will be punished. But they will also be given a chance to become something better. That is the human way. Threll was still confused, but some of them did not surrender. Some of them are still out there, still raiding, still killing. What will you do about them? Rodriguez's eyes grew hard. We will hunt them, we will find them. We will make them face justice too. Humans do not forget. We do not give up. But we also do not destroy those who want to change. This is the balance we try to keep. The trials took 3 years. Each Kreth who had surrendered was judged individually by a court made up of Vethani, humans, and neutral observers from other species. It was a slow and painful process. Many argued that it was too slow. Many argued that it was too lenient. Many argued that it was not lenient enough. Some Kreth were found innocent, having committed no crimes themselves. These were young ones who had never raided, who had only followed their elders out of duty. They were released and allowed to return home. Some were found guilty of minor crimes. They had participated in raids but had not killed directly. These were given sentences of labor and service, working to rebuild what they had destroyed. They spent years helping Vethani colonies recover. Some were found guilty of terrible crimes. They had killed with their own limbs. They had tortured. They had destroyed lives without remorse. These were imprisoned for the rest of their lives. They would never harm anyone again. Neth was among the guilty. The court found that it had directly participated in the attack on New Shelter. It had taken children from their parents. It had stood by while innocents were killed. The evidence was clear. The verdict was certain. But Neth did not deny any of it. It stood before the court and admitted everything. It described its crimes in detail, holding nothing back. It asked for no mercy. The sentence was severe. 50 years of service in Vethani space, helping to build a memorial for the dead. It would spend the rest of its life surrounded by the victims of its crimes, working to honor those it had helped kill. On the day of the sentencing, Neth spoke. "I accept this judgment," it said. "I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for what I did. I know I can never truly make it right. The dead will always be dead, but I will try. Every day I will try." The galaxy watched these trials closely. No one had ever seen anything like them before. When species went to war, the losers were usually destroyed or enslaved. There was no middle ground. There was no justice. There was only power. Humanity showed them another way. Word spread about what the humans had done. Some species thought they were weak. They had their enemy in their grasp and let them live. This was foolish. The Kreth would recover. The Kreth would attack again. Others thought they were wise. They had broken the cycle of violence. They had shown that even monsters could change. This was the beginning of something new. The debate went on in 1,000 worlds, in 1,000 languages. What did it mean to be just? What did it mean to forgive? These questions had existed since the first beings looked up at the stars. Now they had new answers to consider. The Kreth who had not surrendered continued to raid and kill. They refused to change. They refused to face justice. Commander Vex led them deeper into the dark expanse, gathering strength, planning revenge. For 10 years after the first battle, human ships hunted them across the darkness. It was slow and dangerous work. Many humans died. Many Kreth died too. The war was not over. It had simply changed. But slowly, surely, the raiding Kreth were brought to heel. Some were killed in battle, refusing to surrender until the end. Others saw their comrades face justice and survive, and they began to wonder if there was another path. The raids grew fewer and fewer. The killing stopped, one system at a time. Vex held out longer than anyone. It was the last of the old Kreth, the true believers in the way of the strong. It refused to surrender. It refused to change. It died in a final battle, its ship burning around it, cursing the humans who had destroyed its world. But Vex's children did not follow. They looked at the galaxy their parent had created, a galaxy of fear and death, and they chose differently. They came to the humans and asked for peace. They asked to learn a new way to live. Neth served its sentence faithfully. It worked beside the Vethani it had once captured, building homes and schools and hospitals. The work was hard and never-ending. The memorial for New Shelter took 20 years to complete. At first the Vethani hated it. They refused to speak to it. They made its life as hard as they could. Some threw things at it. Some spat at it. Some simply looked at it with eyes full of pain. Neth accepted all of this without complaint. It did not defend itself. It did not ask for understanding. It simply worked day after day, building something good from the ashes of its crimes. But years passed and things changed. Some of the Vethani began to see Neth differently. They saw a creature that came to work every day, no matter how it was treated. They saw a creature that never complained, never made excuses, never tried to minimize what it had done. They saw a creature that was genuinely trying to be better. It was not forgiveness, not exactly, but it was something. One day an old Vethani approached Neth. Her name was Seln, and she had lost her entire family at New Shelter, her husband, her parents, her 2 children, both young, both full of life and promise. She had spent years hatting the Kreth with every part of her being. She had wanted them all dead. "My daughter was 10 years old," she said to Neth. "She was studying to be a healer. She wanted to help people. She used to practice on her toys, wrapping them in bandages, giving them pretend medicine. Do you understand what you took from the universe when you killed her?" Neth bowed its head. Its many limbs hung at its sides. "I cannot understand fully. The loss is yours, not mine, but I am trying to learn. Every day I try to learn what I destroyed. It is the only way I know to honor the dead." Selm was quiet for a long time. She looked at the creature before her, the monster who had helped destroy her world. She remembered her daughter's face, her smile, the way she laughed when she was happy. Then she did something no one expected. She put her hand on Neth's armored shoulder. "I do not forgive you," she said. "I cannot. What you did cannot be forgiven. But I see that you are trying to change. That is more than most people manage. I will not hate you anymore. It takes too much energy, and I need that energy to live." This moment was recorded and shared across the galaxy. It became one of the most famous images in galactic history. The survivor touching the creature that had destroyed her world. The beginning of something new. 50 years after the battle for the Kreth homeworld, the galaxy was a different place. Humanity had been given full membership in the Galactic Union, with all the rights and responsibilities that came with it. Human colonies spread across dozens of systems. Human traders traveled to every corner of known space. Human ideas spread even further. The concept of restorative justice became one of humanity's greatest exports. Species that had warred for centuries began to try new approaches. They set up courts. They gave criminals chances to change. They focused on healing rather than just punishment. Not everyone agreed with this approach. Not everyone succeeded, but the attempt was made again and again. The Kreth were transformed. Those who had surrendered became advocates for peace. They traveled to other worlds, telling their stories, warning others not to make the same mistakes. Neth became one of the most famous speakers, its tale of regret and redemption touching millions. "I was a monster," Neth would say at every speech. "I did terrible things. I can never undo them, but I can choose to be different now. That choice is always available. No matter what you have done, you can choose to be different." The Kreth who had refused to change died out eventually. Without new raids, they could not sustain their way of life. Their children saw another path and chose it. By the 3rd generation, the warrior Kreth were gone, remembered only in history books and cautionary tales. On the anniversary of New Shelter, Ambassador Threll visited the memorial that Neth had helped build. It was a beautiful place, full of gardens and quiet spaces. 12,000 names were carved into walls of white stone. People came from all over the galaxy to remember and to reflect. Threll was very old now, her silver skin faded to gray. She had spent most of her life studying humans, and she still did not fully understand them, but she had come to love them in her way. She found Sarah Chen's grave nearby. Sarah had died 40 years ago, peacefully, surrounded by family. Her grave was simple, just a small stone with her name and dates. She brought chocolate to the stars. Someone had carved beneath them. "I still do not understand you," Threll said to the stone. "You came to us offering chocolate and asking to be friends. Then you threw yourselves into a war that was not yours. You killed and died for strangers. And then you forgave your enemies even as you hunted them. How can any species contain so many opposites?" A voice answered from behind her. "That is what makes us human." Threll turned. An old man was standing there, leaning on a cane. His face was scarred and he walked with a limp. It took her a moment to recognize Captain Rodriguez. "You are still alive," she said, surprised. He smiled. "Barely. The doctors keep telling me I should have died years ago, but I wanted to see this day. The 50th anniversary, 50 years since we found justice for New Shelter." "Was it justice?" Threll asked. "Many of your people died, many Kreth died too, and in the end you let the criminals live. Some would say that is not justice at all." Rodriguez looked at the wall of names. His eyes moved slowly across them, reading each one. "Justice is not just about punishing the guilty. It is about making things right as much as they can be made right. The dead cannot be brought back, but the living can change. The future can be different from the past. That is the justice we sought." "And the vengeance?" Threll asked. "You also spoke of vengeance when you came to fight." "Vengeance is justice's shadow," Rodriguez said. "We cannot pretend it does not exist. When someone hurts the innocent, there must be consequences. Those who do evil must face what they have done. But vengeance without mercy is just more evil. The balance is what matters." Threll thought about this. She had thought about it for 50 years. "Your species is very strange." "So I have been told," Rodriguez said, laughing. They stood together for a while, looking at the memorial. Visitors came and went. Some were Vethani, paying respects to their lost ones. Some were humans, remembering the price their people had paid. Some were Kreth, faces marked with regret, come to honor those their ancestors had killed. "Do you think it was worth it?" Threll asked finally. Rodriguez was quiet for a long time. He watched a Kreth youngster place a flower at the base of the memorial. The Kreth's limbs trembled as it knelt, and Threll realized it was crying. "I think about that question every day," Rodriguez said. "I lost friends in that war. I lost parts of myself. For a long time I was not sure, but then I see something like this." He gestured at the memorial, at the different species standing together in peace. "And I think, yes, it was worth it, not because we won, but because we showed the galaxy that there is another way." He turned to Threll. "You asked me once why we cared about New Shelter, why we fought for people who were not our own. I told you that they were people and that was enough. I still believe that. Every being in this universe deserves justice. Every being deserves the chance to be better. This is what it means to be human." Threll looked at the old captain. She had known him for 50 years now. She had watched him grow from an angry young man into a wise elder. She had seen him fight and kill and forgive and heal. She had seen him embody everything that was confusing and wonderful about humanity. "Thank you," she said, "for everything you have taught us." Rodriguez smiled. "We did not teach you anything. We just reminded you of what you already knew: justice and mercy, vengeance and forgiveness. These things exist in every species. We just try to hold them all at once." He looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear. The sun was setting, painting the clouds in shades of gold and red. It was beautiful in the way that endings can be beautiful. Somewhere out there, other species are learning these lessons too. Some will succeed, some will fail, but the attempt matters, the trying matters. That is what we brought to the stars, not just our anger, not just our kindness, but both together in equal measure, always. Threll watched him walk away, leaning on his cane, growing smaller in the distance. She thought about everything humanity had done since they arrived among the stars, the wars they had fought, the peace they had built, the enemies they had punished, the criminals they had redeemed. She thought about the galaxy before humans came. It had been a place of simple rules. The strong dominated the weak. Enemies were destroyed. There was no middle ground. Now there was something new. There was justice. There was forgiveness. There was the strange human belief that everyone could change, that the future did not have to be like the past. Not everyone agreed with this belief. Not everyone wanted to change. The universe was still full of cruelty and pain, but somewhere in every corner of the galaxy, beings were looking at each other differently. They were asking new questions. They were trying new approaches. The memorial stood in the fading light, its white walls glowing softly. The names on the wall seemed to shimmer, each one a life lost, a story ended. But they were not forgotten. They would never be forgotten. Their deaths had meant something. Their deaths had changed everything. And in the stars above, on 1,000 worlds, the descendants of those who had fought and died and forgiven continued their work. They hunted the guilty. They healed the wounded. They gave second chances to those who earned them. They held vengeance and forgiveness in equal measure, knowing that both were necessary, that both had their place. Humanity had brought this gift to the stars, not just their technology or art, not just their chocolate and coffee and music, but something deeper, something that could not be measured or weighed. They had brought the belief that justice was possible, that mercy was strength, that even monsters could choose to be different. Threll stood alone in the gathering darkness, surrounded by the names of the dead. She thought about her own long life, all the things she had seen. She thought about the future, all the things yet to come. Then she did something she had never done before. She said a human prayer, one she had learned from Sarah Chen all those years ago. "May we have the courage to seek justice," she whispered. "May we have the wisdom to show mercy. And may we never forget that both are needed in equal measure always." The stars came out above her, cold and bright and full of promise. Somewhere out there, beings were fighting and dying and forgiving and healing. Somewhere out there, the lessons of new shelter were being learned again. Humanity had brought vengeance and forgiveness to the stars in equal measure, and the stars would never be the same.